Hello everyone! Today I suggest we talk about the pros and cons of living in Thailand. And the first downside is of course the visa. To stay in the country legally on a permanent basis, you have to pay for it. You need to extend your visa or leave the country for a visa run. The second downside is paid healthcare. First of all, medical care is very expensive. If you don't have money, it's better to get insurance. And secondly, in an emergency situation, you will need to pay a deposit first, and only after that will you receive emergency medical assistance. I think that's definitely a downside. And what if someone doesn't have the required amount in such a situation? I'm sure there's some way to solve it. The third downside is the lack of sidewalks, specifically in Phuket. In general, there are sidewalks in Phuket, of course. In some areas, for example in Phuket town, there are sidewalks, but even there, not everywhere. In Rawai, for example, there are almost no sidewalks, so you have to walk along the side of the road. And that's quite dangerous, especially if you're with a child. That's how it is. And for me, that's definitely a big downside. The fourth downside is that, of course, there are traffic rules, but no one actually follows them. If you attempt to cross the road at a specifically designated crosswalk, it is highly probable that no one will actually yield to allow you to cross safely. Or, if they do happen to yield, it occurs in exceptionally rare instances. Consequently, in this particular situation, you absolutely must look carefully both ways to thoroughly ensure that there are no approaching cars or bicycles, and then proceed to quickly cross the road with caution. And that's also very dangerous. It's a stressful situation. When I first moved to Thailand, I was actually really scared to cross the road. It took me a lot of time. Now I'm used to it and I handle it fine, but it's still a downside. Also, Thais might drive against traffic, even on the shoulder, to turn onto the street they need, for example. And I've noticed a trend that tourists have started doing this sometimes too. Yeah. The fifth downside is children's personal boundaries. Thais really love children. That's great, it's wonderful. But when they touch a child, I think that's unacceptable. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't touch a child without asking, especially if the child doesn't want it. There's no need to peek into a stroller when a small child is sleeping inside just to see who's there. For me, that's not normal. When I genuinely see this situation, I truly try to emphatically say no, but I simply cannot accurately read other people's minds or precisely predict what actions they are going to undertake. I absolutely don't like it. I think you shouldn't do that. After all, we are adults. We can't just walk up to a stranger and touch their face, their hand, and so on. We can't do that. We don't allow ourselves to do that.